Ms. Hips has returned, and this time without vengeance. I'm not sure why they decided to run her and Ayaka now instead of Eula, but at least Shenhe wanters are Shenhe havers now. And like me recording this video right now, Shenhe is pretty sick. You know the drill. Today I'm bringing you an updated Shenhe team guide that will showcase her best teams and rotations. This video is focused on different team archetypes for her, so while a team may not be the best team for Shenhe, it may still be the best team of that type for her. With all that being said, my name is Braxophone, and let's talk about Shenhe's teams. One of Shenhe's best teams and one of my personal favorites is Reverse Melt Quick Swap with Shenhe, Kaeya, Bennett, and Xiangling. The idea behind this team is that many of the characters can deal decent damage, and there will be constant reverse melts going off from Kaeya and Shenhe, while Xiangling also dishes out massive damage as well. Every character gets buffed by Bennett, and Shenhe is able to further boost her own damage as well as Kaeya's for some huge numbers. With Xiangling also on field, the enemy health bar gets absolutely melted. Everyone in this team is dealing damage, even Bennett when he puts his burst down. To make the best of it, you want to build everyone as a DPS, with Bennett's build being flexible based on how much healing you want and because he needs a lot of energy recharge. Keep in mind that Shenhe can deal pretty solid damage even with her normal triple attack build. When I say to build Shenhe as a DPS, I mostly mean make sure she can crit, and that is totally possible with an attack build. For your rotation in this setup, you want to snapshot characters' bursts with Bennett's attack bonus. To take full advantage, I recommend you do the following. Open with Bennett's elemental skill and burst just to funnel some energy particles into Xiangling's elemental skill and burst, which will snapshot Bennett's buff, Shenhe's tap elemental skill and burst, Kaeya's elemental skill and burst, and then rotate Bennett's elemental skill, Kaeya's elemental skill, Shenhe's tap elemental skill, Bennett's elemental skill, Kaeya's elemental skill, and then repeat. It doesn't feel like it lines up as perfect and clean as regular Reverse Melt Quick Swap with Rosaria Kaeya, but once you get used to it, it all does sit into place nicely and you get a lot of damage. Reverse Melt teams are fun to play, and I highly recommend this one for new Shenhe havers. If you prefer, you can swap out Kaeya for Rosaria or even Chongyun, though Chongyun's version will deal less team damage overall. Bennett Xiangling is a must. Today's video is sponsored by Immortal Rising, the extreme idle action RPG. In Immortal Rising, you progress through a dark fantasy story with uniquely styled graphics, characters, and monsters. Fight through tons of waves of evil monsters with swords, daggers, bows, and magic skills. In this side-scrolling ARPG, you can define your own destiny. Immortal Rising's progression is quick and exciting, and you can feel your character get stronger as you go. And something I really love about it is that it respects your free time. As a new player, you get tons of rewards and benefits like gems, enhancement stones, gold, rune dice, and even more. These items will enhance your journey online or offline, and you can even get bonuses just by logging in every day. Gear up your character and set out on an amazing journey. Immortal Rising is one of the best idle RPGs recognized by mobile users with over 600,000 downloads worldwide. Click the link in the description and pinned comment, join myself and others on this dark fantasy adventure, and become immortal. One of Shenhe's best teams is a Shenhe, Ayaka, Kokomi, and Kazuha composition, more commonly known as Freeze. In a Freeze setup, Shenhe exists to deal some personal damage and buff the damage of the cryo characters on your team. Shenhe also can buff Kazuha's cryo damage he deals when he's swirled cryo in his burst, meaning she gets extra value. No, swirl damage doesn't count towards Shenhe, but characters like Kazuha and Sucrose that deal that swirled element of damage separately from the reaction can have that damage in hand. With Kazuha to buff cryo damage further and debuff enemies, and Kokomi to heal and apply Hydro for freeze, the team is incredibly strong. Now, one thing to note is that you can also give Kokomi Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers if you want to pass off a massive attack buff to Ayaka. Now, as far as rotations go for this team, they're a bit more free and flexible, as there's going to be different kill times based on content and investment, and freeze teams are pretty variable in the content you use them in. But here's one rotation that I found to be pretty easy and rewarding. Use Shenhe's tap elemental skill and burst, then follow up with Kazuha's elemental skill and burst as well. Kokomi's elemental skill will then freeze the enemies, and she will be able to pass Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayer buff on to Ayaka, who you're going to swap to next. Dash to activate her passive, use her elemental skill followed by her elemental burst, and then charge attack once. Then use Shenhe's hold elemental skill, which is going to buff your following charge attacks with Ayaka later, Kazuha's elemental skill to swirl cryo one more time, and Kokomi's elemental burst to refresh the jellyfish duration back into Ayaka charge attack spam. Between all of the buffs going out and the freeze freeze that's going to increase your crit rate for Blizzard Stray or Ayaka, and the cryo resonance you're going to have, this team is incredibly powerful. If you don't have all of the characters to make this possible, because let's be real, freeze teams can be expensive, there are tons of viable units that you can substitute. For instance, you can replace Ayaka or Kazuha with Ganyu, Kaya, or Rosaria. This will essentially make the team a little bit more quick swappy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a word. If you're wondering what sorts of teams get insanely high value from Shenhe, then Mono Cryo is your jam. In this team, every single character is capable of getting her quill buff, which makes this team significantly stronger than it was before she was in the game. Some of the best units for this are Ayaka, Ganyu, Shenhe, and Kazuha. I prefer freeze to this team because it makes the game a little bit easier with enemies not being able to move, but in boss content where enemies can't be frozen anyways, this team can be a better choice. The rotation is also extremely easy to conceptualize. Ganyu Elemental Skill, followed by Kazuha's Elemental Skill and Burst to swirl cryo and give you that cryo damage buff, Ganyu's Elemental Burst that snapshots, Shenhe's Elemental Skill and Burst into Ayaka's Dash Elemental Skill, Burst, and Charge attacks. It just deals a lot of damage, there's not really much else to say. With all that said though, the optimal DPS setup for this team doesn't really have a healer, and if you'd prefer to have one, you can replace any cryo damage dealer with someone like Layla or Diona for more survivability. Since you're not freezing enemies, Zhongli with the Archaic Petra set can also be okay for it. Lastly, any cryo damage dealer, including Rosaria, Kaya, and Chongyun, can be decent replacements, and Sucrose Burst also gets benefits from Shenhe quills, so you can sub her in for Kazuha with a weapon like Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers in order to buff a character even further. The fourth team I want to show you for Shenhe is going to be a Eula team. It's a shame she's not back this patch. Eula's cryo attacks don't hit very hard compared to the rest of her kit, but Shenhe can add a fair bit of damage to them, as well as increase other cryo support's personal damage. Even Diona's damage can be useful with a Shenhe buff. Shenhe also can increase burst damage with her passive by tapping her elemental skill, which helps Eula's nuke. Shenhe also helps with particle generation for Eula, and when combined with Diona and Fischl, you won't really have too bad of energy issues. As far as your rotations go, it can actually depend on your ping if you want to optimize. For example, a very low ping environment would let you do something really cool with Shenhe's elemental skill. For the rotation for this team, I recommend starting off with Fischl's elemental skill and then following up with Eula's tap elemental skill. Then Shenhe tap skill and burst, Diona hold skill and burst, followed up by Fischl's elemental burst to re-up Oz. Then you can use Eula's tap elemental skill, then her burst, and then hold elemental skill and spam normal attacks, and then right at the end swap to Shenhe and tap elemental skill before the nuke damage goes off. This is where the ping comes into play, because if you have pretty bad ping, you may not be able to swap to Shenhe and get her elemental skill off before Eula's burst blows up, but if you can get the skill off, then you can activate her burst damage bonus passive, and that'll help Eula deal a little bit more damage. If you have skill issue or bad ping, you can use Shenhe's elemental skill after Fischl's burst, and that should allow you to get Eula's burst off with the burst damage bonus from Shenhe. After this, I recommend re-upping Diona's shield, and you can either swap to Eula and normal attack or go back to Fischl and wait a couple seconds for Oz to come back. For substitutes, I don't recommend swapping anyone except maybe Layla or Rosaria for Diona. Rosaria can increase this team's damage by quite a bit, but running Eula without a healer can be pretty painful. Swapping out Fischl for Raiden is an option as well, but I wouldn't recommend other Electro units. Going Rosaria Kuki instead of Diona Fischl will result in less team energy. For the fifth Shenhe team, to be honest, she doesn't really have a ton of teams that she's like giga optimal in. She is a more niche character, but she does have a utility that makes her able to do really stupid funny things. And so I recommend for a fifth team, if you're just looking to have some fun, make any melee character a cryo DPS by running Chongyun and Shenhe together with another buffer and that character. Like I said, it's kinda dumb, but check out my DPS Layla. Yeah, don't try this in Abyss.